My name is Eileen Howell, and I'm 32 years old. 3 days before my older brother's wedding, I was standing in the produce aisle of a grocery store, staring at two nearly identical avocados and wondering why one was 50 cents more expensive than the other. It was the kind of boring, ordinary thought you have when your life feels stable, when you believe the ground under your feet isn't about to give way. That's when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it. I usually do when I'm shopping. But something about the vibration felt heavier, more insistent, like it knew it was about to ruin my day. I pulled my phone out of my coat pocket and glanced at the screen. $12,300, event rental services, catering, chairs, tent, setup. For a second, I honestly thought it was a joke, or a scam, or some weird system glitch that would disappear if I refreshed the app. I did refresh it. The charge stayed. My stomach dropped so fast I had to grip the edge of the produce bin to steady myself. People walked around me, reaching for apples and oranges, completely unaware that my sense of reality had just cracked open in the middle of aisle 4. That account wasn't supposed to be used like that. A year earlier, after my mom had a serious health scare, my dad suggested we create a shared emergency fund. Just in case, he said. Hospital bills, unexpected repairs, anything big. Family should help family. At the time, it sounded reasonable, responsible even. I was the one who set it up. I linked it to my primary account, capped the balance, set transaction limits. I gave my parents and my brother the login details, but kept everything low-key. I trusted them. That was my mistake. That account was never meant to be a wedding fund. It wasn't meant for floral arrangements or chair covers or a luxury tent for an outdoor ceremony in early spring. It was meant for emergencies. So when I saw the charge, my first instinct was fraud. I called the bank right there in the grocery store, my cart abandoned a few feet away. The representative was polite, calm, efficient. Too calm. "No, Ms. Howell," she said after a brief pause. "This transaction wasn't flagged. The account was accessed directly with the correct credentials." I thanked her, hung up, and stood there staring at my phone until the realization finally landed. Ryan, my older brother. I didn't text him, I didn't call, I didn't give myself time to second guess what I already knew. I walked out of the store, groceries forgotten, and drove straight to his apartment. He opened the door like he'd been expecting me. Ryan didn't look stressed or apologetic. He looked relaxed, comfortable, like nothing in the world was wrong. Behind him, his fiancée, Danielle, was sprawled on the couch in a silk robe, wine glass in hand, scrolling through what looked suspiciously like a wedding seating chart on her tablet. Candles were lit. Music played softly in the background. The vibe was calm, casual, almost celebratory. It made my skin crawl. "Did you use my account?" I asked, skipping every formality. Ryan didn't hesitate. "Yeah," he said, "of course." "Of course." Then he leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, wearing that familiar expression, the one he'd worn my entire life whenever he needed something from me. "Eileen," he said, like he was explaining something obvious, "you're basically the wallet in this family. Don't act surprised." I waited. For a laugh. For him to say he was kidding. For Danielle to look embarrassed. Or at least uncomfortable. None of that happened. Danielle laughed. Not awkwardly, not nervously. She laughed like I was the idiot for even asking the question. Something inside me went very still. I smiled. I didn't plan to. It just happened. It wasn't warm or friendly, but it was real. "Well," I said, backing toward the door. "Good luck with the weather." Ryan frowned like he didn't understand what I meant, but I was already gone. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open and my phone beside me, working my way through every single charge on that account. Tent rental, canceled. Tables and chairs, canceled. Catering, canceled. Sound equipment, canceled. Every vendor confirmed it. Full refunds across the board. I didn't warn anyone. I didn't explain myself. I didn't ask permission. I simply erased their wedding. By morning, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Missed calls from my mom, then my dad, then Ryan, then Danielle. Voicemails piled up. Messages flashing across my screen in all caps. I didn't listen to any of them. I already knew what they were going to say. By mid-morning, Ryan was pounding on my door. He didn't sit down. He didn't ask how I was. He launched straight into it, pacing my living room like a trapped animal. "You need to fix this," he said. "You need to call everyone back and reinstate the bookings. People are flying in, Eileen. Invitations are out. If this doesn't get paid again by tonight, the wedding is off." His voice cracked, not with guilt, but with panic. I looked at him calmly and asked the question that had been burning in my chest since the grocery store. "Why would you plan a wedding you can't afford?" He stared at me like I was the crazy one. "We thought you'd handle it," he said. "You always do. You make the most money. You don't have kids. You don't need it like we do." There it was. Not remorse, not apology. Expectation. I told him no. I told him I wasn't paying for their fantasy. That what they'd done wasn't help. It was theft. Ryan didn't argue. He just looked at me like I'd betrayed him. And that was when I realized this was never just about a wedding. It was about who they thought I was. And I was done being her. I thought Ryan leaving my apartment would calm things down. It didn't. By the time I woke up the next morning, my phone looked like it had been possessed. 16 missed calls, dozens of text messages, voicemails stacked so tightly they blurred together. I didn't listen to them at first. I already knew the pattern. It always started polite, concerned, confused, and then it turned. The first voicemail was my mom. Her voice was strained, tight with forced calm. She said there was a problem with the wedding bookings. The second voicemail came 5 minutes later, sharper. The third was my dad, asking why vendors were calling him. By the fourth, my mom was crying. By message number 10, the tone shifted. "This isn't funny, Eileen. You've gone too far. Fix this now." One text from my dad read, "This is a family milestone. You're tearing it apart." I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat at my kitchen table, staring at my phone like it belonged to someone else. Then I opened my email. That's when I realized how deep this really went. Subject lines filled my inbox. Urgent. Tent cancellation. Confirmation catering. Contract. Status required. Final payment. Reversal inquiry. I scrolled, heart sinking lower with each message. Ryan had listed my email address as the primary contact on nearly everything. The venue coordinator wrote first, asking if the event was still scheduled. A DJ named Marco followed, politely confused about the refunded deposit. A woman who specialized in chocolate-dipped strawberries wanted to know why her invoice had been reversed. Each email ended the same way. "Please advise." That was when it hit me. They hadn't just dipped into the account. They'd built the entire wedding on it. Every deposit, every reservation, every plan had been made with my money, without my permission, without even the courtesy of a conversation. There was no backup plan, no "in case Eileen says no." Because in their minds, that scenario didn't exist. Around noon, my phone rang again. I answered out of curiosity. A man's voice launched into the conversation without introducing himself. "I'm Danielle's father," he said, "and I'm extremely disappointed." I held the phone away from my ear for a second, then brought it back. He went on about how I'd jeopardized everything, how Danielle was devastated, how her mother was in tears, how guests had already booked flights and hotels. Then he asked if I understood the financial and emotional damage I'd caused. I let him finish. "I understand perfectly," I said calmly. What I corrected was a theft. There was a pause on the line. Then his voice hardened. "Do you have any idea how much weddings cost?" "Yes," I replied. "That's exactly why people usually pay for their own." He didn't like that answer. The call ended abruptly. At 2:47 p.m., a new group chat appeared on my phone. Family wedding emergency. It included my parents, Ryan, Danielle, and somehow Danielle's parents as well. My mom typed first. "We need to fix this immediately. This isn't just Ryan's day. It's all of ours." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I left the chat. I grabbed my keys and drove straight to the bank. I shut down the emergency account entirely, revoked every login, changed my passwords, updated my two-factor authentication. I canceled the shared credit card my parents used occasionally, only a $500 limit, but I was done being the safety net. When I got home, 3 new voicemails were waiting. Ryan's voice sounded strained, almost desperate. "The only way to save this is if you pay again up front," he said. "By tonight, otherwise everything's gone. You're humiliating the whole family." I didn't respond. I just sat there, realizing how twisted this had become. That evening, Ryan showed up again. I'd forgotten he still had a spare key. He walked into my apartment like nothing had happened, pacing the living room, running his hands through his hair. "Danielle hasn't stopped crying," he said. "Her parents are furious. Guests are calling. Everything is falling apart." I let him talk. Then I asked the question that had been sitting in my chest since the grocery store. "Why did you think this was okay?" He didn't even flinch. "We thought you'd handle it," he said. "You make more than all of us. You don't have kids. You don't really need the money. You always take care of things." There it was again. Not guilt. Expectation. I told him that if he couldn't afford a wedding, he shouldn't be having one. He didn't argue. He just looked at me like I'd betrayed him, then walked out. That night was quiet. Too quiet. No calls, no texts. For a brief moment, I thought maybe they'd finally backed off. I was wrong. At noon the next day, my mom showed up at my door without warning. She walked in and handed me a printed sheet of paper. A budget. She and Danielle's parents had worked out a compromise. Smaller venue, cheaper food, no band. Just under $11,400. This is the solution, she said. You pay this, and everything goes back to normal. I stared at the paper, waiting for the apology that never came. Do you seriously expect me to pay this? I asked. She sighed, like I was being difficult. You don't understand the pressure they're under, she said. Canceling now would be humiliating. You need to stop being so cold and think about your family. I'm not paying another cent, I said, not $1. Her face hardened. If this wedding doesn't happen, she said quietly, it's on you. After she left, I sat alone at my kitchen table, not angry anymore, just stunned. They really thought this was normal. A few hours later, Danielle's mother called. She didn't bother with a greeting. You're ruining my daughter's life, she said. When I asked if she knew they'd used my account without permission, she said it didn't matter, only fixing it did. That's when it finally clicked. They didn't think what they'd done was wrong. They just thought it was inconvenient that I noticed. That night, after Danielle's mother hung up on me, I shut everything down. Not dramatically, not with an announcement. I logged into every account I shared with my family and disconnected them one by one. Auto pay for my parents' utilities, off. Shared streaming services, canceled. The emergency contact list on my employee benefits, updated. Every loose thread I could think of, I cut. I didn't feel angry while I did it. I felt focused, like someone cleaning glass after it's already shattered, careful not to bleed again. The next morning, I found 3 handwritten envelopes slid under my door. My parents' handwriting, Ryan's, one from Danielle. They read like forgiveness letters, but they weren't apologies. They were guilt dressed up in cursive. Phrases like, we know you're hurting, and family is more important than money. And my personal favorite, written in my father's tight, slanted script. Real women don't let money come between blood. Each letter ended the same way. An offer, a second chance, an invitation to fix what I had broken. I dropped them into the trash without responding. An hour later, my bank app notified me of something new. A $1-800 withdrawal from a trust account I hadn't checked in months. The label said medical. My chest tightened. I called the trust manager immediately. He confirmed the withdrawal had already cleared. When I asked where the money went, he hesitated, then forwarded me the invoice attached to the request. Wedding photographer. Danielle had used my last name. That was the moment everything snapped into place. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't desperation. It wasn't a single bad decision. They had been quietly draining me. I called the photographer myself. He confirmed the booking had been made under family authorization. I thanked him, told him the payment was unauthorized, and asked for documentation. Then I called my lawyer. Not to sue, not yet. Just to document. Texts, emails, account logs, screenshots of social posts. Just in case, she said. That afternoon, Danielle showed up at my office. Security escorted her out before she reached the front desk. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stared at me through the glass doors like I was something she couldn't understand anymore. That night, she left me a voicemail. Her voice was calm, controlled. She said the wedding was off, that the damage was done, that everyone knew what kind of person I was now. An hour later, Ryan called. He sounded peaceful. He told me they'd decided to elope. Greece. Something intimate. Something romantic. All you'd need to do, he said, is cover the travel, about $6,000. I laughed. Then I hung up. The next morning, Danielle posted her version of the story online. A crying selfie, a wine glass on the nightstand, a caption about betrayal and toxic family members who couldn't handle seeing others happy. Sympathy poured in. I sent the post to Ryan with one message. Take it down or I start talking. 2 hours later, he replied, Coward. That was when I knew there was nothing left to save. I called the trust fund manager and froze everything. Added a note that only I could authorize future withdrawals. No exceptions. Then I updated my HR file, removed my family from all emergency contacts, changed my address, locked my benefits account. At 3 p.m., Ryan sent me a photo. Him and Danielle standing in a travel agency, Greece brochures spread out on the counter. Last chance to do the right thing, he wrote. I didn't respond. At 6, my dad left a voicemail saying I was acting out of character, that I'd regret this, that family was forever. An hour later, my landlord emailed me. Someone had reported suspicious activity at my apartment. No proof, no follow-up, but I knew exactly who it was. The next day was supposed to be the wedding. My cousin Sarah called me from the venue. "There's nothing here," she said. "No tent, no food, no chairs. People are showing up confused." Danielle hadn't told anyone it was canceled. She arrived an hour later in her dress and screamed at the locked doors. Some guests laughed, others left quietly. Ryan never showed. I later found out he was on a flight to Miami, with a coworker Danielle had once accused him of flirting with. That night, Danielle posted another photo, mascara streaked, caption blaming everyone but herself. I didn't look at the comments. The next morning I left. I moved 2 states away. Small place, quiet street, new job, new number. No shared accounts, no one else's name on anything. People ask me if I regret it. I don't. Because it was never just about the wedding. It was about how easily they took, how certain they were that I'd always carry them. I stopped. They fell. I walked away. And for the first time in my life, I slept.